2 years ago, I wasn't sure I was a podcaster. I definitely knew I was a critical care physician who happened to have some ideas about coaching. And Klaus, you really weren't sure either. And yet here we are at episode 100. So what changed?
I'll be honest, when Lillian first asked me to help out with this podcast, I said yes because I wanted to learn something new, but I had no idea it'd become one of the most meaningful projects of my career.
Welcome to the Transforming Healthcare Coaching Podcast, where we're all about helping healthcare professionals like you create positive change at work, at home, and everywhere in between. You are listening to a special episode, our 100th episode, and we are so happy that you're here with us, and we have a lot of lessons and takeaways from the last 2 years. And so I'm joined with Klaus Grimm, physician assistant, and also podcast director for Transforming Healthcare Coaching. Hi, Klaus.
Hi, Lily. Thanks so much for starting us off for this episode. I'm really excited to be here. I think you and I share a deep passion for podcasts since we've been doing this for a few years now.
Yes.
So, Lily, why don't you start us off here? Take us back to early 2024. What was happening in your life when you decided to start this podcast?
Yeah, so I think in 2024, we really were moving more into this video space here on YouTube. And before all of this, as part of our learning and growth journey with Transforming Healthcare Coaching, we really had not been on social media. We had no idea what it was like to get out there and just put our little flag out there and say what we wanted to say about why we exist as a company and why it's important to have a different type of podcast. I mean, lots of people listen to true crime, news shows, even audiobooks. But why would a healthcare professional listen to coaches, give them tips and advice about leadership, life, and well-being? Well, since none existed, we decided to make a podcast all about that, meant for the frontline clinicians, all the people out there, millions of healthcare workers of all professions, physicians, nurses, NPs, PAs, pharmacists. We just wanted to be in the ear, giving people perspectives, a different perspective perhaps than they had ever really seen or heard before. And so we moved from LinkedIn live audio events, moved into audio podcasting, and then rapidly moved into this space, the YouTube podcast space.
I love it. I remember the first days of starting this podcast, and we just wanted to be a voice for healthcare professionals, that there was a different way to live that wasn't in our burnout, it wasn't in our challenges, but in looking for solutions and help guide you through those solutions. So this has been a great journey. And I'm curious, what was your biggest fear that almost stopped you from starting this podcast?
I have to admit, I don't have a YouTube channel. In fact, prior to this, I never really used YouTube. I mean, aside from random Googling for something that I needed a tutorial on how to fix something, I really am not a chronic YouTube binger. I only just recently started with YouTube TV. So it really wasn't even someone who was really familiar with things. So I think for all of us back in the beginning it's a little nerve-wracking to be out on video. I think many of us are comfortable perhaps in the audio space, but it's a little bit more nerve-wracking to be out in the video space, the searchability, the findability, and oops, what if I mess up?
Yeah. And I remember we had also no idea on how to create a podcast. I think that was another thing. We're healthcare professionals practicing medicine. We're continuing with our medical education, but podcasting is something completely different. There was different softwares. There was having to set up a almost studio, have a microphone, where to put it, what about recording devices, things like that. And I think what you spoke about with your presence on video was a challenge. Speaking to a camera with another person who's not in the same room as you can be very challenging. So I remember that being a big challenge for us at the start. And can you remember what it felt like to hit record on that very first episode?
I think it's definitely very exciting, actually. I mean, some people would find it a little bit nerve-wracking. I would probably say that if we spoke on behalf of some of our teammates, that it wasn't so easy. People did get nervous. I think it was interesting to watch us all on Zoom. We all did better when we just riffed rather than having any kind of script. And even to this day, we are still minimal script kind of people because it's more easy to talk naturally than it is to have a highly produced and highly curated show in general. But for me, I think it was exciting and also a little nerve-wracking. And at the same time, I think really it's the publishing side. Once we hit publish and we went go live, it's like, oh wow, well, we did it. And it just gets so much easier once you just get out there and do it.
Yeah. And I remember the editing process. I was editing the same video file and audio file multiple times every week until we were publishing because it was like, you know what, we got to get it right. We got to get it right. But then, as you mentioned, when we became more natural and just relaxed and let it be the way it was, it sounded higher quality and you gained so much more from listening to the less edited version of how I initially anticipated. So, for someone thinking about starting something meaningful like we did with the podcast, what's the one mind shift that made the difference for you?
I would say just try something small and take action. It really is about just doing the best advice that you can, meaning that you just get enough information to be good enough and try. Because if you don't keep trying and iterating and refining, that's where the learning happens. And it's really super exciting to be able to do something totally different, not healthcare related at all. Like watching videos, thinking about color schemes, watching how other people do things, thinking about what do we want for our brand and style and structure. These are all creative pursuits, and I think definitely both of us got that fulfillment in the creative pursuits.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's taking the step if it's something that's important and meaningful for you, taking that one step and growing and not being so attached with being perfect at the start and letting it evolve and grow and be authentic to you and your brand and your company. I say go for it.
Yeah. And so when you came on board and I asked you to be the podcast director, what initially drew you to this project? Because it was easy for you to say yes.
Yeah, it was easy, but it was nerve-wracking. I was like, "Oh, I always love having a role that is important, that brings meaning to the work that I do and the work I do with a team. I like to be able to provide in ways that I can. And I love learning. I love growing. I love trying things new. I did used to love doing video things, video editing stuff, small things before I went into medicine. I remember in high school when I was choosing career paths, it was between being a video editor and working with video games and film or going into medicine. It was like 2 completely different paths. So I abandoned the fantasy world of things that I was initially envisioning to provide meaningful change for other people. So this was a little side project that said, "Oh, I can kinda have that passion again and still speak to my passion of medicine." So I think that's probably the biggest draw to it, and being able to bring attention to something that was so important to me, that helped me so much when I was struggling in healthcare, that I knew that would be a benefit for other people, and they just needed to hear about it and learn about it. And so I was excited for that opportunity.
That's really cool. So, I mean, that for everyone who's listening, that's a lesson in how we might want to find and say yes to opportunities. So often we're told no, we tell no to ourselves, and we also say no to other people. And instead, even though it's a huge burden, because this kind of gets into my next question, but we both work full time clinically. We both teach. We both have many other roles and identities. And yet we decide to say yes to aligning our creative pursuits along with new fun adventure and expression for what it means to be in healthcare and be able to help other people. And so that leads to my next question is there were seasons when our production got overwhelming. And so what kept you from walking away?
Talking about the past here, or are you talking about the present? No, there are always times where things can get very overwhelming, but there's something meaningful in the work that we do that I think is very grounding. So when I'm feeling overwhelmed and I go through editing process and some of the episodes, they're very anabolic, they're very positive, they're very reassuring and validating, right, to a lot of the overwhelm and emotions and feelings that I'm having despite everything that's going on. So I get to learn as I edit, and over time, that process has gotten a lot easier. Since I've done it so many times, it's easier to do the edits, it's easier to publish all these things, and I think what kept me from walking away is that knowing that I'm part of a team that's doing this, knowing that it is actually providing meaningful insights for our listeners. I have some amazing coworkers that are just completely supportive, and fans and supporters that I don't work with directly that have reached out and said that, certain episode or a certain few episodes have been incredibly meaningful for them and helping them see things from a new lens that they never initially thought they could think from. And that keeps them on board to listening to us every Monday. So I think that's what keeps me from walking away is saying, we're making a difference and we're speaking to some meaningful things, and I'm gaining some beautiful insights along the way as well.
Really love that. So, all of you listeners out there, people who are listening now, please like, subscribe, share with a friend, and more importantly, we really appreciate the things that you say, you tell us directly, personally, DM, leave a comment. It really matters a lot. We're real people, obviously, on the side of the video camera, and we just want to reach more healthcare professionals and know that they're not alone and there are options and there are different ways to think about things, and that together, all professions, we can help each other. So, Klaus really shared how important it is for us to be able to keep this mission and journey going. And so we hope that you hear us and are willing to reach out, which leads into my next question, which is what's a specific moment, maybe an email or a listener message that reminds you why this matters? Do you have a particular moment or?
Think it was one of our first comments on Apple Podcasts that we got when we first just started, and I don't wanna showcase them here without their permission, but they were so kind with what they said, that this was a kind of go-to podcast episode for all things well-being and healthcare, and I may be quoting it not exactly right, but when I read that, I was like, "I don't know who you are, but that is so kind of you. Thank you for that." It was validating to know that when you're going on stage or you're going on a podcast where you're showcasing your vulnerability, you being on camera, you speaking to something that may not be familiar with people, or maybe almost hocus pocus to some people. Well-being can be that kind of feeling for some people. There are people that are resonating with what we are saying. And when we have that, it helps us, it motivates us, number one, to continue giving you guys great content. And number two, when you speak to us, and like you said, Lily, when you comment on like a specific episode, or you like a specific episode, or you reach out to me, and you can reach out to me at podcast at transforminghealthcarecoaching.com via email, I can start to tailor and get our guests that are specific to some of those pain points that you're having or those solutions that you're seeking. And that's how we love to bring people on, is to create that meaningful change that you're looking for. So I don't know if it's also just one specific moment. I just think when I even go to work and I have a colleague that says, Klaus, I really love this episode. I have one colleague who, when we first started, was telling me that they sit down with a pen and paper and take notes and reflect as we go through. And it was so meaningful to hear that they are actually taking steps to make positive changes in their life, and I was like, "Yes, let me know what else I can do through the episodes to help you continue to make those changes you're looking for." So, thank you everybody who's listening, who has been part of this journey, and like Lily said, a comment, a subscribe goes a long way to support us to say, "Hey, I enjoy this." So, thank you.
Yeah, so no matter what platform. And so it's funny for this particular question, I actually will comment on. We want to thank Dr. MTO, whoever you are, because you were our very first Apple review, which was a 5-star review, which we were grateful for. And we do not know who this person is. And so if you're willing, we do have a gift for you. If you want to reach out at podcast at transforminghealthcarecoaching.com, obviously unannounced competition, but just to be the first person to give kudos to a brand new podcast. I mean, back then, we were only a few episodes in. And so I'll just quote some part of the review, which is that self-care is in the center of healthcare. And he or she understands the mission in terms of what we're about, which is trying to help all healthcare professionals live differently, lead differently, and craft a different way forward in healthcare. So, for listeners who are wondering about their why, like, why do I stay in healthcare? Why should I be here? What's in it for me? What's your advice for reconnecting with your own personal purpose, as self leadership being the most important first step that you can do in your life?
Well, we just had an episode on that, Vicky Landers and I, who's a physical therapist, speaker, and coach, where we talked about how to reignite your purpose in healthcare amidst the chaos and challenges that sometimes make it difficult to remember that. I don't know if that is a simple answer about what my advice would be, but I think with all things that we recommend as coaches is that deep reflection and saying, having that awareness that it doesn't have to be completely lost, that your purpose has always been there. It just needs to be dug back up and remembered. And when we start to hold on to that purpose, we can start to say, how do I want to create my value? How do my values not get disrupted? And how can I continue to find meaningful ways to not let so much of the challenges bother me both at work and at home. And it takes work. It really does. And I think a lot of people are looking for a quick solution. We talk about this vacation that people are always looking for, which vacations are so important, but they're not the end all solution for burnout and losing purpose in healthcare. It may help temporarily, but when you come back, a lot of those challenges resurface and a lot of those problems resurface. And so, how do we ground ourselves into making meaningful change? It's just that, taking very small steps towards that meaningful change and knowing that it's a journey, knowing that it's not a one day fix. It's consistent, sustainable change that works for you. And that's the other thing. You are your own unique person. So give yourself grace, allow yourself to quote unquote fail to only succeed.
So, what, 5, 6 years since the pandemic, we have come quite far in our journeys to becoming coaches, taking additional trainings, starting a business, starting a podcast, starting a newsletter, all of the things. And so I think we want to share some of our top lessons and reflections in terms of thinking back on our at least the last 100 episodes and the last 2 years of running a video podcast. And I think those are lessons that are transferable to everything that you have. As you think about as your life design in a broken system, life is broken, the world is broken, and there are many good things going on out there. And people are doing all kinds of incredible things, both in academics, in healthcare, in the home, your personal life, in your athletics. We see it even right now, watching the Olympics internationally. There are amazing things going on in the world. And it's all through small lessons and small things that you design yourself. So, Klaus, do you want to start with your first reflection point in terms of as you think about how far we've come in 100 episodes?
I think you named one of them when you said our newsletter or just in general, our podcast. And I think what I spoke to is people have their different meanings of what failure is. So when we were creating our newsletter and our podcast, we thought it was maybe perfect in the beginning. We're not going to touch it. We're not going to leave it. That's the way it is. That's our brand. But I think my top lesson was letting go of perfectionism, letting go of perfect, being okay with that quote unquote failure and saying, okay, what did I learn from that? What did we learn from that? How do we shift and adapt and say, yeah, let's make some modifications so that it's a improved experience for the listener or the viewer. I think that's my first one. So just letting go of the attachment that you may have had when you first created something and saying it's okay to be a little bit different and make some tweaks.
That iteration beats perfection any day. I think for me, I'll probably start with starting before you're ready. I don't think that in any way, shape, or form did we ever think that we were ready to start a podcast. I wasn't ready to like begin a LinkedIn live audio room, LinkedIn live audio events, stream live on YouTube. I'm never ready. No one's ever ready for these things. And so thinking about perfect conditions or getting more knowledge or going through more degree programs, it's really just procrastination in disguise. And so I have to admit, back in the day when I was in college, I was a procrastinator. I still am sometimes. Procrastination, for those people who read about that particular mental block, come for very different reasons. But really, the reality is just jumping in and taking action, starting before you ever feel like you're ready, which is hard for a person who feels first and does second, like me.
Yeah. And a lot of people really want to have everything completely outlined and completely organized before they launch something. And that I think leads to that procrastination that you just talked about, Lily. So I think that was definitely a big thing we learned from this podcast is maybe we're not ready. Maybe we should film 10 episodes before we start. No, 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 just start. And I'm going to piggyback on that as another lesson too, is that Lily, we've gone through a lot of learnings over the past couple of years outside of medicine with the podcast, with the business, even as coaches. We are growing as coaches every day. We're in a team coaching program currently. And one thing I've also gained tremendously from these past few years is learning from people who are not just in healthcare. There are people in other industries, other coaches who coach other executives or other niche markets that have something to teach and I have something to learn from. Though I know may not speak the exact language that they speak in terms of their industry that they're working with, the concepts are roughly the same. And it's the same for us. My partner is a police officer, and one of the things I tell him is that you may gain something from these podcast episodes, though you're not in healthcare. Frontline healthcare professionals do resonate with this more, a little bit more than maybe other industries may. But the concepts that we speak to are about micro changes in your life and positive growth and development that I think anybody could benefit from.
That learning is transferable. Yeah. And so I guess I think for me also what I've discovered through this entire process is that having a really valued, aligned team makes a difference. And what I mean by having values aligned team means that one of my strongest values is the creativity and the freedom and the learning and the growth. And so we have core values here at Transforming Healthcare Coaching, and growth mindset and learning and playful fun really are embodied through willingness to just show up on camera, to do things that we're not comfortable with, write a newsletter. As you see, Jillian and I co-write the newsletter every month, to do creative acts, things that maybe would be more lonely if we didn't do it, if we just did it by ourselves. And finding people who want to grow and play in that same kind of way and space and be willing to give each other feedback and just try things and to have some kind of partner in that creative process really has been very helpful to have the co-creators that you see all of us here on the YouTube channel.
I think that it even extends to the teams that are out there, for instance, in healthcare, is that we are sometimes stuck on performance and becoming the highest performing team. And when we start to focus on value and teamwork and our purpose, there's so much more meaningful impact that a team can do and sustainably. I think that adds to the last point that I think I have is sustainability and consistency are extremely important. This is something I've gained as being a coaching client to being a coach, just being a human being, is that consistency is so important in order to make meaningful changes that you're looking for in life.
Yeah, consistency really compounds by actually doing the work day to day, week to week, very small steps, small, very doable steps. That weekly accountability, reliability on yourself, and being consistent means you can become more proud and more confident over time. And then, two, you realize it just gets easier. It's just like practicing the piano or doing any other sport. The more oftentimes we hang out here on YouTube, the easier it gets.
Yeah.
So I think we've both grown quite a bit through this work. And so what do you think has changed in you?
Many things have changed, but I think the most important is my presence and my confidence in speaking to what it is that we do as coaches, which is, I think, the purpose of why we created this podcast at the beginning was to be more confident as coaches, to speak to our healthcare audience about what we do so that they can see that there is possibility beyond what they may be feeling trapped in, and that we are a resource for them. We are a business at Transforming Healthcare Coaching, and we do provide coaching services. So that was our outlet to say, if that is something that intrigues you and interests you, book a call with us so we can see if we can help customize some kind of package for you that supports you in this journey that you're looking for. And so I think that has been probably the biggest thing is that confidence to be able to speak that out loud on camera, but even in person because as a result of that. What about you?
I think for me, the same. It's going to be confidence and clarity. I think it was hard in the beginning there's so many things that we could coach or talk about. In fact, there's so many things that our clients bring to us. All of life, we're one whole human. And so I think for me, just getting more clear and confident on camera and always just watching to be what else can I improve upon and really just normalizing that process of what am I going to try to get better at? How do I feel most alive? And I do love being here on video with all of you.
Yeah. So, Lily, that was a great final reflection. And then thank you so much for creating this episode for our audience. But if you had to distill 100 episodes into one message, what would it be?
Consistent growth is through taking action. What about you? Distill 100 episodes into one message?
You said yours too quickly. Now, you stole mine, is what I'm going to say. I would say you are braver than you think. That one micro step might be the meaningful impact that you're seeking.
Love that. Well, there is a reason why we're the co-hosts. It's because we sort of complete each other's thoughts.
Yeah,
So,
that is true.
so thank you all so much. Our listeners, really, honestly, We couldn't do this without you. And so we're really grateful for everyone who's messaged us, liked us, who subscribed to us, people who are in our newsletter, people who are in our private MedThrive Connect free community where we hold webinars, book clubs. We've got all kinds of things that are here for you, freely available, share with your friends and colleagues. And then the reality is when you're ready to pull the trigger for one-on-one or team coaching or bring us to your organization, the time will be ready. But in the meantime, hang out with us at the MedThrive Connect, our newsletters here on the podcast, on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and anywhere else that you listen to podcasts. And so any final thoughts, Klaus, before we wrap it up?
Just let us know again how this episode resonated with you. That would be extremely helpful and motivating for us. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe and share with a colleague who would benefit. Together, we can transform healthcare one person at a time. Find us anywhere you find your podcasts. Ready to take your healthcare leadership journey to the next level? Book a discovery call, free, at transforminghealthcarecoaching.com to explore our personalized coaching packages designed specifically for healthcare professionals like you.